Hello, welcome to the Crates Motel. My name's Conan. Pretty basic stuff today. However, whilst it is basic, I do think it's quite important. So, discard or extract? That's the question. Let's jump in. So before we get into it, I just want to say that the other day we were about to do something, myself and my wife. Nothing untoward, just normal everyday stuff. And she said, let's jump in. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. It is what it is, I guess. It's my own fault, I suppose. I've just kind of come from that old school of, not catchphrases, but old school kind of, when I used to listen to radio and stuff, most of the radio DJs had their own kind of, catchphrase, I suppose. So I come from that school and it's just kind of carried through. So anyway, rambling. Somebody asked me the other day what lens I was using. Today it's a Canon FD, late 70s, 28mm. Lovely lens, really creamy. Anyway, there you go. Again, rambling. So let's jump into this video. Today, we're going to look at some basic stuff to do with sample editing. I've got a sample in the MPC. It's basically, there's no right or wrong here. It's kind of about what your workflow is. And I'm going to explain why I tend to use extract rather than discard. Discard and extract are the two options that you have when you've cut your sample up. But I'm going to explain to you why I tend to use extract nowadays. Now, certainly back in the day when you only had 10-second sample time, or you only had floppy disks, or even, I mean, I'm talking even early 2000s, up to 2010, memory was expensive. You know, I can remember getting a 1 GB memory card for my digital camera in the early 2000s, and it was like 300-400 quid, something ridiculous like that. But now, in my opinion, there's no excuse because memory is so cheap, and consequently, my workflow has slightly changed. And it's a lot more convenient as well, and I'll explain. So we've got a sample in the MPC. Now that sample could have come from anywhere. It could have come straight off vinyl. It could be on a hard drive somewhere. It could be taken straight off YouTube. And these things are kind of why my workflow has slightly changed. For me, more that I've got endless hard drives full of samples. So when I work nowadays, I sample into my MPC and I'll sample a massive chunk, more than I need most of the time. Or alternatively, I will drag and drop an entire track into my MPC. And then I will go through the track and I'll find the bits that I want. And that's why I tend to use extract rather than discard. And I'll show you why in a second. So using this sample as an example, it literally took me 6 times to get that right. That's why there's an edit. I've got a big chunk of the record here. It's kind of the outro of the record, actually. Most of the record previous to this is useless. However, in certain situations, you've got the entire record, you've got 3 seconds that you're going to use, and you would chop those 3 seconds, and then you would discard and get rid of everything else, and then you'd have your 3 seconds in your sampler, and you'd be super happy, and then suddenly, oh, I need another little bit from the track. Okay, and now I need to find it. Now, sometimes you might be very organized and you might have the rest of that track on a hard drive somewhere or on your computer somewhere or in your MPC still somewhere, and you'll be able to find it easily. But a lot of the time you don't. And for instance, YouTube, I know a lot of people sample off YouTube. Even Madlib samples off YouTube. I quote him there. And I know for a fact that I've listened to things on YouTube before, rare breaks, rare funk, rare jazz, etc. Even, well, it doesn't even have to be rare. It can be a well-known track, and you'll listen to it on YouTube, and then you'll go back the next day. It's not there anymore because of copyright reasons. So this is why I don't tend to take 3 seconds of a sample, chop it, discard it, get rid of everything else, and then save that in my project. What I tend to do is I tend to save the entire sample in my project and then jump into it, and I can take what I need. However, if I do need to go back and take more parts, if I do need to grab a stab or another snare drum from somewhere, and I'll show you what I mean. So we've got this sample in here. Like I said, let's use this sample as an example. I'm getting there with that now. And we don't want to use the beginning part, but we might want to go back. Now, if I was going to discard this, I would find Okay, so this is mainly the part that I would use. Let's just put zero snap on. Okay, so that's the main break. That's the part. That's why I bought the record. Stick it in loop. Okay, so what I could do, go into process here, and I could go discard. And what would happen is everything at the everything after the end and everything before the start disappear, goodbye. No way of getting that back. And that's the scary thing. Now, like I said, back in the day when you had 10 seconds of sample time or floppy disks, or even, like I said, you know, back in the early 2000s when memory was still expensive, we would do that because we didn't have the memory to store the entire track. And, you know, you could argue that, well, I've still got the entire track. I've got it on vinyl, or I've got it on my hard drive. But how many times have I, like I said, I've got endless hard drives. So how many times have I named that file something weird in my MPC? Like the name of the track might be Here Comes the Meter Men or whatever, by the Meters. And I'll name it Meter or Men or something like that. And you might forget where you've got that from. So the reason why now I save the entire track in the project so that I can go back and grab bits is for that very, very reason, that if I need more, I don't have to dig around for it. That's another thing as well. Time is money, and you don't really want to have to go around digging around in endless bits of vinyl, endless hard drives, trying to find it on YouTube again, or trying to find it on cassette, or whatever your source is. So I could do discard, and there are occasions when I do discard, and like I said, there's no right or wrong here. By all means, carry on doing discard, but I'm just going to explain to you. I just want to open your mind a little bit and explain to you why I use extract. So I could go discard, could get rid of the start and finish, and there we go. I'd have my beat. There it is. Let's just pretend that that's discarded. That doesn't exist anymore. And I have my beat. Okay, brilliant. However, like I said, and you know what I'm getting to, like I said, this is really real basic stuff, but I still see people say, do you know what this is off? And they'll put up a 2-second sample, which they found on their MPC, and they can't remember what it's off because they called it something stupid. I mean, I've even renamed this. This isn't called Have Beat Will Travel. It's called something else. I've renamed it for copyright reasons. And sometimes I don't like to say what my breaks are. Come on, you can't give everything away. I do give a lot away, but you can't give everything away. Answers below if you do know what the break is. So the reason why I would use extract, so let's go to extract, is because then what would happen is, I could change that to Have Beat Will Travel 1. Already had that, I don't know why I bothered. So there we go, do it, and now I have a brand new sample just of that beat. But I do still have the rest of my beat. So if I wanted to go back and just take, you know, a stab. Okay, go into process again, and I can go into Have Beat Stab. Do it. There we go. Now I've got another new sample, Have Beat Stab. So you see where I'm going with this? And I still have my original sample. Anytime that I want to go back to it and take another piece, or let's say, for instance, you do something destructive, like you normalize something. So by having it available in my project folder at any time, I can always go back to it and I can get another piece of it. Or like I said, if I've done something destructive, I can go back and get the same piece out again and start again, all those kind of things. And these things happen so many times, and I see so many people do it. They'll do something destructive, discard is destructive, for instance, and then they're kind of a bit screwed if they want to go back, or if they've forgotten the name in the sample, etc., etc., etc. So really, you know, like I said, this is a very, very basic video, and it's kind of in answer to something I saw the other day. Actually, it was several people on multiple forums saying, do you know where this break's from? Because I've got it on a hard drive somewhere, I've put it in my sampler and I can't remember what it is. Because they'd called it something different, like Beat 1, there's a classic. And then they wanted to find out what it was because they wanted to use something else in that same record. So if they'd have used extract and saved the original sample in their project folder, then they wouldn't have had that issue. So there you have it. Very, very basic stuff. However, I wanted to put it out there because I've seen so many people go through that process of, does anybody know what this is? Or I sampled this off YouTube and now it's not on YouTube anymore. Does anyone have a copy? Etc., etc. And the reason why I changed my workflow, obviously I couldn't always have a workflow like this because memory used to be expensive, but now there's not really any excuse. So I keep everything in my project folder that I use, my samples, you know, within reason, obviously. If you've got a record, a track, piece of vinyl or whatever, and you've taken one snare drum off it and the rest of the record is absolute garbage, you can make a decision there and say, yeah, I don't need to keep this. You know, that's why there's no right or wrong. But I have found in the past that it saved me a lot of time, and it saved me in particular situations where I've been stuck and I need to get to another part of the break, or I want to sample something else in the track, but I haven't got it anymore. I think, oh, I remember halfway through the track, there was that really nice bit of vocal that was isolated, like in a drop or a breakdown. So now I have to try and find the track again. If it's saved in the project folder, I don't have to do that. So in danger of pushing my point, it's a really good habit to get into. Take the original sample, save it in your project folder, and use extract rather than discard. So thank you for watching. This is the Crates Motel. My name's Conan. Till next time.